now. And I'm
Right.
officially gonna hand it over to Maria now. So get
Oh,
prepared. Again, check again. Do you have your notebook with you, your pen? As she just mentioned, she warned us it's going to be very interactive. So I think that's going to be very changing now what she's going to do with us. So Maria, I'm very grateful to have you here. She is
happy
an
to be
amazing
here.
individual. She's been living in China for more than 10 years, is originally from Italy. I have the pleasure to have founded Monday Morning Motivation with her 1.5 years ago. Oh, soon it's two. Maria does a lot of great things related to intercultural training. So she has been working with lots of big and small companies from all around the world. And yeah, she's an amazing coach too. So I'm really looking forward to your session. That's enough now. Maria, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Janine, and I'm super happy to be here. I'm super happy to see everybody here. Now, a disclaimer. As you can see, I don't have the fancy setup that Colin or Chris had. So I'm only working with a computer and a PPT because I thought I'd switch things up. Both of them did the no PPT presentation, but I swear I only have a few slides, so it's not going to be a packed PPT. But I'm very thankful for everybody who's staying up at 4 a.m. apparently from Belgium. Thank you, Kathy. I do appreciate it. And now I feel a lot of pressure of delivering something that it's worth for you being up at 4 a.m. For those who are in China, happy Sunday morning. For those who are in Australia, happy Sunday afternoon. For those who are everywhere else, thank you for joining. And thank you. I do have to shout out the great job that Janine has done to put all of this together. It's been wonderful so far, and I have not joined the live room yet, but I will later, but I'm sure there's going to be so much value in this conference for everybody. So thank you for joining, and welcome to Growth Mindset for Clarity. That is going to be the topic for us today, and it's going to be interactive. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. I like to ask questions and I like for people to do their own work because that's how you actually make change. So that's what we're going to do today. First of all, let me make sure that I'm doing things correctly. For those of you who don't know me, and let me pull this away from here. Well, that's a few things about me. And I've been 11 years in China, 10 years coaching and training experience. And then I had to go down and do all the numbers because I thought it was funny. So I have 9 favorite podcasts. I have 8, even more maybe, ongoing knitting project. I was locked out of China for 7 months in 2020. I got back. I'm in Shanghai now, and I'm very excited to be here. I do have 6 piercings. I have 5 fingers on each hand because I'm a human being who has luckily not lost any of her fingers. I do carry 4 notebooks with me, mostly at all times. I have founded 3 communities globally. I do have 2 books published. One of this is over here because it's actually printed and is the Monday Morning Motivation book. The second is my Time Management Tools for Clarity book, which is an ebook. And I have founded 1 companies and I have 0 pets because I'm allergic to both cats and dogs. So no pets for me. But I do get to meet Janine's cat maybe sometimes in the future, and hopefully I won't be allergic to her. So, what are we talking about today? My focus is helping overwhelmed professionals finding clarity by clarifying their priorities and making sure that you can get things done quicker, easier, and with less stress. So, this is the business room, this is the boardroom. We are going to talk about getting things done. So, how many of you have felt overwhelmed or stressed or had felt that you have way too many things going on in the past, let's say, couple of months? Show of hands, type in the chat, unmute yourselves, anything. I cannot see everybody, so it's going to be a bit, all right. I see people nodding, I see some hands up. Okay. Why? Why you felt so overwhelmed? Probably because you had literally a lot of things to do. And sometimes it's also because all of those things that you need to do create a fog in your mind, because you keep thinking about all the things you have to do, you keep thinking of all the challenges you have, and that doesn't allow you to think clearly. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a little step towards getting more clarity. And I like that I'm speaking after Chris because I get to steal his quotes, because he literally said that clarity is power, and I'm going to steal that because that's a good one. And it's so, so true. Think about the keynote, think about what Colin said, think about what Chris said. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there. And that's the first thing that everybody does on January 1st is you set New Year resolutions, right? This year I want to do X, Y, Z. And the more general they are, the less they work usually, but at least you get a direction. And that direction is only possible if you know what you want to achieve. To know what you want to achieve, you have to have clarity on what are the important things. To know what are the important things, you need to know what you have and where are you right now. Even before that, even before knowing where you are, you need to know that you want to make that change. I was working with a client yesterday, and we had a couple of sessions already, and she was telling me that she can't make a decision on how to improve because she feels like she's not doing anything. She keeps going around in circles. And I had to make it very clear to her that the idea that she is willing to work on her issues, on her challenges, is already a sign that she has a growth mindset. I'm sure here anybody who has read or came across the idea of growth mindset. Anybody care to describe what growth mindset is? Wait, I have to pull the chat up. Anybody knows what a growth mindset is, or how would you define it?
Maria,
Yes,
Sebastian,
Sebastian.
I'll have a go.
Please do.
As the name suggests, there are two important parts. First is mindset. The second part is growth. As you know, the mind is a wonderful machine, and in fact, I would put it to the crowd here that it is indeed the most powerful computer that we all carry on our shoulders. And sadly to say, though, most, if not all of us, don't use its full potential. I'd be the first one to put my hand to acknowledge that. And growth obviously is the right direction. We, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we would always aspire after growth. So growth mindset to me is to train your mind so that you would see a picture as a glass half full rather than a glass empty, a half empty, and that you always look for ways to grow your business. That's
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you, Sebastian. That is exactly true. Our brain is the most powerful computer or way to process the world that we have. And going back to what Chris said before is that people do the best with what they have. Many times people don't realize that they have a lot more than they think they do. Because not a lot of times we stop and realize how much we get in the way of ourselves. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at how thinking of yourself and how sometimes when you think of all the things you have to do, all your challenges, the challenge is not really what you have to do, it's about how you think of yourself. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just check in the chat. There's a few people describing growth mindset, which is keep evolving, constantly learning something consistently. Mindset to challenge yourself, not to settle, to continuously be better than you were before and move towards an objective you desire. Tian Tian says, no failure, only learnings. No such thing as failure. There's only feedback. Right. So with that in mind, I would like you guys to do a couple of things. We have a lot of people here, so we cannot open the floor for everybody to share. That would be confusing and long. But I want everybody to take a piece of paper and a pen. You can do it on your phone, but I do strongly suggest it to do it on paper. I'm a writer, I'm a writing person. I like writing on paper because it feels better and you actually process things better. So I'm going to take you through a few things to hopefully get from overwhelm to clarity in 20 minutes. Let's do this. As I said, I'm going to ask the questions and you guys are going to do the hard work. So let's see how this goes. First question. And I know we have limited time, but think about, what are your challenges right now? Some people raised their hand when I asked if you were feeling overwhelmed, if you were feeling stressed, if you were feeling confused and meh, and have lots of things in your head. What are you challenged by right now? Write it down. Take a piece of paper, write down what are your challenges right now. It doesn't matter how big or small they are. If you're thinking about it and if it feels challenging, that's okay. That's something that is challenging you right now, something that is on your mind, something that is preventing you from doing something. And also, if you would like to be so kind so that we can have some interaction, you don't have to be specific if you don't want to. I'm absolutely not going to breach any confidentiality or any private topics, but if you want to type in the chat or say something about one or two challenges that you're facing right now, I would highly appreciate it so I can give examples that are more relevant to whatever you guys are working through. Otherwise, I'm just going to make random examples and hopefully they will be relevant. Well, Tian Tian says time management, and I love you, Tian Tian. I would like just talk about time management for 45 hours, but unfortunately we don't have the time, but I will make some examples about time management. Thank you. Emily says leadership versus management. Ooh, okay, all right. Okay. So think about the challenges you're going through right now. Write them down. They can be 1, they can be 25. If you have time to write more, please do write more. Hopefully you have at least a couple so that we can do the next step and it makes a little bit more sense. But even if you have only one, that's okay, because you can take this question and think about it anyway. Liana says, staying motivated, clarity over the near future and how to get there, overcoming insecurities. Okay. Right direction, right path, learning Chinese, avoiding excuses. Okay. Choose where to turn my focus on. All right. Those are fantastic challenges that hopefully by the end of this session today, you will have a little bit more clarity on. So if you have done your challenges writing down, you should see that now there are a few things and you might feel a little bit more overwhelmed, or if you take a deep breath, you might see that there's a list in front of you. Those are things that you can do something about. What I found extremely powerful for me in the last 10 months, 12 months, is when I feel overwhelmed, the first thing I do is take a piece of paper and just write everything that is on my head. I do a brain dump. That is extremely powerful for me to get the spinning feeling out of my head and on a piece of paper. Just the act of putting black to white really helps with making some distance from your mind to the paper. And it really helps to frame it in a slightly less overwhelming way and giving it practical, actionable body. You can do something about it. There's a few, okay, overcoming insecurities, no clear business direction, discerning the best steps to take, crossing roads with a new job, as well as moving country, taking new paths, overcoming insecurities. Okay, all right. So those are all quite big challenges, okay? Now I want you guys to be ready for question number 2. Why are these things a challenge for you? You may or may not have thought about this before, but I think every speaker has said it so far, but starting with the why is so important. You wrote things down, those are challenging you. There's no objection about it. Why? Why are these things challenging for you? The answer, the question is broad enough that you guys can take this question as you prefer. Why are these things a challenge? Again, feel free to write it down, copy and paste it in the chat, speak it out loud, whatever you guys think. But ask yourself this question, and this is the trick. This is why I love my job, is that you have to be honest with yourselves. I can't do that for you. Especially when you're working through overwhelming thoughts and overwhelming feelings and you want to get clarity, you have to be honest with yourself. Because if you're not, you're doing a disservice to you. You know your situation better than anyone else. And so you know what the answer is. You might not like the answer. That doesn't make it less true. Okay, so a few people are saying, why? Because I don't know where to start. Okay, what could be the first step? Fear of failure. Yes, fear of failure is a big, big one. And it's normal. Humans are afraid of failure. Failure sucks because it doesn't feel as good as success. That doesn't mean that it's not helpful. It doesn't mean that it doesn't help us to get where we want to be. They are a challenge because it will impact the company, because it tends to get me stuck on the way, because it will affect my life and other people's life. Challenges are challenges for a reason. They are not easy to deal with, okay? But identifying the reason why something is a challenge is a better way to start understanding how to do it. Now, because of the time and because you guys are so many, we cannot go through exactly how to deal with every single challenge. So I want to take it a step up. I want you guys to forget about the challenge for just a little while and think about one thing. When you're thinking about these challenges, okay, they can feel big, they can feel very hard to solve, they can feel very difficult to achieve. But what are you thinking about yourself when you think of these challenges? How do you identify yourself in dealing with these challenges? I'm going to take a big stab in the dark and say that maybe you think you're not good enough. Maybe you think that these things are too hard. Maybe you think that this is too big and too overwhelming. Think about I am something. In how do you feel and think about yourself when you're dealing with all these challenges? Motivation, feel frustrated. Okay. So challenges can be frustrating and challenges can be pretty hard to deal with. Think about one sentence that is like, I am something, something. For example, saw someone before, I apologize, I don't remember who said it. There's a lot of messages in the chat. Someone said, I'm afraid of failure, right? So some people, when they think about a challenge and when they're very overwhelmed, they could tell themselves, I'm a failure. I'm not successful. I'm not good enough. I'm lazy. Thank you, Yolanda. I don't have time. I don't have the resources. I don't know how to do this. There's a lot of time that we just tell ourselves that we are not X enough. Okay, Valeria said all of that. Okay, great. And again, I want to stress that this is normal. Most people, when they feel overwhelmed, their brain just tries to shut down and say, well, I'm not good enough, so why even bother? Why even trying? When something feels too complicated, it gets hard, and our brain doesn't like to work on hard problems. Our brain likes easy things and pleasure and things that are not too complicated. But as you all might have guessed, that is not how you get things done. Because you keep telling yourself, I'm too lazy, you're giving yourself excuses for not taking action. And that is not what growth mindset is about. Growth mindset is about accepting the situation and making the most of what you have at the moment in order to achieve what you want. Continuously learning means also continuously learn from yourself on how to get you unstuck. Some challenges might be harder than others, don't get me wrong. Not everything is just down to mindset, but growth mindset is step number one. If you always believe that you're not good enough and you can't do it because it's too hard, then you won't do it. There's a very famous Ford quote that says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Because that's the power of mindset. If you don't believe you can do it, it's not going to happen. If you believe you can do it, it might be hard or you might get stuck a couple of times, but it will propel you forward. If you don't even try, then it's not going to happen. Nobody will do it for you. So let's do something. I want you guys to think about how you think to yourself and write down a sentence. Choose one. For example, I'm not good enough. I don't have the resources. I am too lazy. I am not disciplined. Try to write down a sentence like that that encapsulate how you feel about when you think of these challenges. Write it down in the chat, in your notebook. Doesn't matter. I am, I don't, I, whatever. For example, for lots of people is, I want to do a lot of things. I don't have the time. I am busy. And so on. Write that sentence. And once you've done that, I want you guys to think, what choice do you have? You can keep thinking that and making that your identity, or you can change that. That's entirely up to you. Again, I'm guessing because you are joining this webinar and you're joining the Excellence Convention, you're interested in doing something a little bit better. You're interested in improving yourself. You're interested in learning more. So my guess is that the choice you want to make is to change that. Change how you think about these challenges. Changing how you think about yourself. But it's still a choice. You don't have to if you don't want to. But if you want to get results, if you want to get things done, you do have to change how you think about yourself. How do you do that? If you're anyone like me, you write to yourself a lot. And I do that literally every day. I write, I journal a lot. And the end of 2020, I was doing an exercise, which I recommend to anyone who writes constantly, which is I was reviewing everything I was writing. It was a lot. But I realized that in the months I started using different words on how I write, how I speak to myself. At the beginning, especially the beginning of last year, I was under lockdown for a few months in Italy and I was stuck. I could not get to China. I was using a lot of negative words. I was using a lot of like very negative self-talk because my situation I felt at the time was pretty drab and I couldn't do anything about it. Then I noticed that going in with time, I started using more positive sentences. Literally, I was not using not anymore. I was using more I want to, I am, I will. And that's a tiny shift, but that coincides with the timeline of like when I started getting things done and when I actually finally made it back to China. Correlation doesn't causation is not correlation, but I'm sure there's a connection in there somewhere. So going back to this, how can you change the way you talk to yourself? If you have written down, for example, I am lazy, or I am not productive enough, or I am not good enough, I am undisciplined, how can you change that sentence into something positive? Remember, your brain really doesn't work on negatives, so using positive words really, really helps. For example, if you've written down, I am not disciplined, you could change that into, I am not disciplined yet. Or, I am becoming more disciplined. I'm working towards more discipline. It's a small shift. It's a very, very, very small thing. And if English is not your native language, if you don't think in English, feel free to do this in whatever language feels more comfortable, because it doesn't have to be in English. It can be in any language as long as it resonates with you and with your brain. Because how we talk to ourselves is so, so, so important in order to make that shift from the fixed mindset, I'm not good enough, to I'm becoming better. That's the growth mindset. Because once you have that, you can make the change that you're working towards. But if you don't decide to look at yourself as someone who can change, then it's really a no-starter. You cannot help people who don't want to help themselves. It's simple and it's a hard truth, but it's reality. If you don't want to change, nobody can do it for you. That's why switching the mindset is so, so, so important. So I encourage everybody to make that change into that small sentence. And if you want, I'll be very happy for you guys to type it in the chat or speak it out loud, because I really want to see how you guys are making that shift from fixed mindset, I'm not good enough, to the growth mindset, I am becoming better, I'm improving. Type it away while I take a sip of my tea. Hopefully everybody's still with me at the time. This makes sense? I lost the chat. I found the chat. Okay. And if you don't want to share, that's fine. Write it down on your piece of paper, on your notebook, on wherever you want to. Use trusty sticky notes. Just put them somewhere. Extremely valuable. Let's say, I'm working on becoming enough. There you go. I'm figuring out new ways of better time management. See? Even just saying that, for me, reading that just feels so much better compared to, I'm not good at time management. I'm learning how to be better at time management. You might be at the first tiny step, but you're starting the process compared to blocking yourself into a little corner and using that as an excuse. Well, I'm not good at it, so why even bother? So this is the question that we've been answering now, is what do you think about yourself now? Instead of being stuck, you're starting to create a journey. You're thinking about yourself in a more positive way. You're giving yourself the opportunity to actually start and do things. Sometimes we are our worst obstacles. Because it's hard, because it's complicated, we just prefer to say, I'm not good enough. This is something that I will never be good at, so why even try? And honestly, most of the time, that's not true. It's not true. It might be hard to get where you want to, but if you don't start, that will not happen. I'm working on feeling incredible, checking ways to be more organized and focused. Awesome. Dealing with injury was after races was lazy to see a physiotherapist, damaged it more, so I gave up a wake-up call and started looking towards myself again. There you go. I am amazing. I will follow my magical ways as I always do. Yes, you're all amazing and you're all magical. You just have to realize that. We do the best with what we have, and sometimes we don't realize that most of the things we need are just inside ourselves. And then we can go find whatever we're lacking. Keep typing it in the chat. So now that we've done, hopefully, this mindset shift, and it might not be instant for everybody, it might take a little bit of time, but if you haven't felt that change when you started changing that sentence, try to do it again, maybe this afternoon, maybe this evening, maybe tomorrow, because that might take some time if you need more practice or if you need more reflection time. So think about the challenges that you have set. Okay, at the beginning of this call, I asked you to write down a few challenges. Now, look at your sentence that it's like, I am becoming, I am something, something, something. I'm working towards doing something. Look at the challenges now. Which of these challenges seems like a little bit less scary? Now that you have a little bit more growth mindset in you, which of those challenges seem a little bit less scary? I'm not going to say that they magically became easy to deal with. But now that you know that you're becoming more productive, that you're learning how to deal better in time management, that you are starting to look after yourself again, that you are working and feeling incredible, that you are figuring out things, that you are working on becoming enough. Which one of that challenges seems a little bit less scary? Which one do you feel that you can make one step towards? And this is where I ask you to be honest again. This is where I ask you to choose one challenge that you do truthfully and honestly want to make one tiny step towards. Feel free to think about that. If you want to write it down in the chat. If you don't want to write it down, that's okay. Just make a big circle around that challenge so that you know that that's what you want to take a little bit of action. Could be procrastination, getting clear on my focus. Yes, tackling procrastination. It's a good challenge, and that is literally what we're doing. We're trying to get a little bit further, a little bit one step ahead in the challenges that you're facing. So once you have your challenge, once you have identified your challenge, I want to ask you one last question. And this is the question that is worth everything. You've gone through this process, you've gone through these questions, you hopefully have identified one challenge that you can do something about. What is that? And because we're dealing with from overwhelming to clarity, we don't need a 10,000 steps action plan. Those rarely work. You can take 10,000 steps, but you got to take one step at a time. So the last question is the clarifying question. Also, if you ever want, please do read The One Thing. It's a fantastic book that is all about one question. The question is, what is the one thing you can do right now so that everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And that's such a simple question, but so, so, so powerful. Think about your challenge. Think about what is one thing, small thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. What is one thing you can do to tackle that challenge today? It could be as easy as writing down a plan of action. That is one thing. You're taking one step. Could be, I get to contact someone who can help me. I can read more about this topic. I can ask someone a question. It doesn't matter. As long as it's one action, you're creating momentum. So you went from confused and overwhelmed to making a journey and taking the first tiny step. And honestly, that's the hardest step. Once you take that one step, everything else is going to become a little bit easier. But that one step, you have taken. Again, feel free to share in the chat or unmute yourselves if you want to share what that action is. If you don't want, that's okay, as long as you are clear on what that action is. Again, I can't do anything to make sure that you take that action because that has got to come from you. And that, honestly, is the power of coaching and accountability, is someone who asks you a question, so you that decide what you want to do. Hopefully, that has given you some clarity about the challenges that you're facing. I recognize the fact that this is a big group and the time is very, very limited. So it's very hard to go in depth in every single challenge or explore a little more each of these steps. But I wanted to share with everybody a simple process and a simple steps of questions that you can ask yourself as well. Every time you feel a little bit overwhelmed or you feel that you're struggling with something, you can use this question to figure out what the next step is. Let me see, there's a couple of things in the chat. Right now, nothing seems doable at the moment. I have 1 month time frame. In Chinese New Year, I'm going to climb the mountain. Small step I took is started inclination jogging after 5 months, just 5 minutes at the moment. The small step will definitely help me conquer to climb the next month. You're literally, thank you for sharing, you're literally preparing to climb a mountain. That is the perfect metaphor for everything we've been talking so far. And one small step is going to get closer to climbing that mountain. Maybe in a week, it's going to be a few steps. It's going to be 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. So congrats on taking the first step to climbing your literal mountain. This will help me grow and overcome the challenge. There you go. Sometimes it's just a question of switching the way that you look at things. Sometimes it takes longer, don't get me wrong. Not everything is figure-outable in just a few questions. But sometimes that's the spark that you need to get things rolling. Sometimes we need to refocus and remind ourselves that we can do it. Thank you, Maria. Maria, you're very welcome. If anybody takes anything from this session and it's valuable, I'm going to be forever grateful. So don't hesitate to ask any questions you might have, because now we're transitioning into the Q&As. And before we get to the Q&A, I just want to say that if you guys need or want to create more results, these are all the things I do. Feel free to get in contact. I have group coachings and I have one-on-one coachings, and this is what I do with my clients, from overwhelm to clarity and then accountability. So Janine is going to share all of this later for everybody who also wants to get in touch, but this is all what I focus on. And now I'm super happy to take any questions, sharings, doubts. things you don't agree with, skepticism, anything. Throw it at me.
Yes, thank you very much, Maria. Okay, everybody, take the chance. We have about more than 10 minutes that you can ask Maria anything or get some advice. Feel free to unmute yourself or text, like write your message in the group as you like.
So Tian Tian says, action on time management, determine and write down the weekly lifestyle L1 for the week. Ooh, I like that. Weekly lifestyle, that sounds awesome. I want to experiment different lifestyles for better time management. Okay, I do like this approach. Like trying different things and see what works and then taking what works and discarding the rest. I like that. Okay, good. Diana says, determine where I want to be by the end of the year. So sit down and make a roadmap. Yes. Also, if it helps, in Monday morning motivation, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Oh, this week. Was it this week? It seems forever ago. Anyway, I think I spoke about yearly themes, which is something I am particularly inclined to use, which is before setting your New Year resolutions, try to think of one word that will help you focus all the things you're doing in 1 year. So instead of having a lot of New Year resolution, trying to find one word that guides you throughout the year. That could be anything. My word for last year was quality. The one for this year is focus. And I use that to adjust what I want to, well, focus on, because I really believe that guiding yourself through the year it's very important. All right, so Diana says, what suggestion do you have to keep a high motivational level? Ooh, that's a great question, and also a question for the ages, and a one that would take forever to answer. But the long story short is, why do you do what you do? Motivation is something that can be fickle and can be both external and internal. Usually when it's external, it's much less powerful. For example, you're doing a job because of the salary. Right? That's external motivation. It's also necessary. But if you don't have the internal motivation to, for example, change the world or like make that company or do the best that you can, that's going to be harder to maintain. So there's a lot of things to be said about motivation, but the easiest way to maintain motivation is to find out why you want to do something and keep that always as a thing in your mind. Because if you're not doing something for a reason that you that you care a lot about, it's going to be harder to keep consistent. I see that you have muted yourself. Do you want to say something? Diana? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. If you want to add something, please feel free to add. But also, something else I want to say about motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Habits and processes don't. So when you realize why you want to do something, that gives you that intrinsic or internal motivation, but don't rely on motivation to get things done. Find ways to create habits and create steps that makes it easier for you to do things. Again, our brain is very lazy. Our brain doesn't like to go through 5 steps to get to the result. I'm going to give you one example. The last couple of months, I started going to FitFam, which in Shanghai and I think in other places in the world as well, it's a community of people who go exercise outside at 6 in the morning. It's winter, it's cold. It's not easy or pleasant to get out of bed at 5:15. My brain doesn't want to do it. So what do? I just take my clothes and put them literally at the end of my bed. So I don't even have to get out of bed to get my clothes. So once I'm dressed, I can get out of bed and I can actually go and do things. Because if my brain thinks I have to go outside the bed, go to the closet, take things, it's going to be too cold, I don't want to do it. So find ways to make the process, make things easier for you with a plan so that you have less resistance and you have less obstacles to go through. If any of that is not clear, please feel free to ask more. There's another question in the chat, which is how to overcome, happy Caroline, that you do the same. So at least I don't feel like a crazy person. How to overcome unnecessary thought which take the energy out. I know it's oneself if you have to do that, but what's your take on it? How to overcome unnecessary thought. Okay, so overthinking. We all do it. Sometimes we get stuck on a problem and we try to find 1,000 solutions, or even worse, we anticipate what the problem is going to be and we stress over what things are going to happen and we can't do anything about it. My idea about how to overcome overthinking is first, either get those thoughts out of your head, which is why I suggested brain dump, write things down, journal, talk to a friend. Literally try to find a ways for those thoughts to get out of your head and somewhere else. Because that's one way to avoid the thoughts going round and round and round. Second is, once you identify which thoughts are recurring or are coming back, you may want to think about what you can do to get rid of that thought. For example, if you keep thinking about the email you have to send, then maybe you just write down, send that email, and then send the email so that you don't keep thinking about it. That is my default answer. Another answer would be try meditation, but I'm definitely not the best person to ask about meditation because I don't still understand it quite often. For me, my meditation is just writing, but Janine and many other people do use meditation way better than I do. And that is one way to learn how to not get rid of thoughts, but focus on particular thoughts and not focus on what you think is unnecessary. That would be the coaching answer that I don't have like specific practical advice for.
Wow, so many good questions in here. We have a few more minutes. Take advantage of Maria. See, next one. What are good ways to be more accountable with yourself and how to continuously do it? Very good questions.
That's an awesome question. I would say that be accountable to yourself is much harder than being accountable to someone else. Why? Because someone else can call you and bother you and annoy you until you get things done. So, yes, Chris, I'm looking directly at you. There's a couple of things to do it. I think that the easiest way to make yourself accountable is set reminders and set processes for you to review. For example, we haven't even talked about goal setting, and there's a whole thing about that. But the idea is that if you set up goals and you give yourself time to review, then you have to face it if you have or have not achieved your goal. And again, this is where you have to be extremely honest with yourself. Why you achieved it, why you didn't, what worked, what could go better. That's one way. But that requires a lot of planning and a lot of honesty with yourself. If you want to take, quote unquote, the shortcut, start by asking someone to be your accountability buddy. Ask a friend, a colleague, a coach, anybody who you trust and who you know is going to actually keep you accountable, and tell them, I'm going to finish that project in 2 months. Please, next week, remind me about it and ask me how I'm doing. The external pressure, the external accountability works much, much quicker than the one for yourself, but you can, in the meantime, set up your own accountability. Hopefully that makes sense. Janine, how am I doing on time? I think there's a couple more minutes left before we do
Yes, you can still do
wrapping.
it. And
Okay.
yeah, because we're going to stay in this room now for the last
cool.
few minutes of the session. So everyone else from the other room is going to join us here. So Maria, you can continue answering questions until I stop
Good.
you.
I have the monopoly of the business boardroom. I'm excited.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am,
good.
you do.
All right, fantastic. Then I'm just gonna put all of those questions. That's the other contact details. Questions, please. More questions. Diana asked, what suggestion you have to find a coach? Look around you. The Excellence Convention is full of coaches, literally.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
So if you
Please.
guys need some coaches, first of all, this is of course another reason why we have the Excellence Convention. You can already get to know different kind of coaches, people, different specializations. So you can get directly in contact with any of the coaches from the Excellence Convention. As I said, tomorrow I will send out all the contact details, all the follow-up programs of the coaches. So if you have a preferred one, get in contact with them directly. And every coach normally offers a free coaching call in advance. So the first call is really about you guys quickly talking about what are your challenges, your goals, what do you want to achieve, and to really like see, do you get along with each other? Because coaching is related to trust. And if you're not sure yet, like who could be the best suitable coach, make sure you get in contact with me. Send me an email. You all got my email address. You all have my WeChat probably. Get in contact with me. Then you and we can have a call. I need to understand a bit more of what you want to, as I said, what you want to achieve, what are your challenges. And then I can make sure that I pair you with a few suitable coaches so that you can check who would be most suitable for you. So we can help you on this. And I can tell you that I've worked with so many good coaches. So for sure, I can tell you those coaches are certified and they're really good in what they're doing.
There's another question in the chat that says, wait, no, I lost it. What is that? Is it better to have one or two coaches? In my experience, I think that if you're working with someone, whether that's one friend or a colleague or a coach or another expert, I think that they might have different approaches. So having too many people at the same time might be confusing, but it depends what you're focusing on. For example, you can have a fitness coach and creativity coach, right? So because those are two different like topics, right? So you might have two approaches for two completely different things. I would think that it would get really confusing if you have, for example, two life coaches at the same time, because you might do things, double the time. So maybe if you want to get more help, you might want to think about which areas do you want to focus on. And if you find someone who's specialized in those areas, then you could get help from different people. Yes. But it really depends what you want to focus on.
Maybe I can add one more point here. I think it really depends on you, but like some of the very well-known coaches, I know a lot of people, they have several coaches, but as Maria said, they would have a coach for a different topic or with a different specialization. Maybe they have one coach for business, maybe one coach for life, maybe one coach for specifically like relationships or so. Yeah, because otherwise it could maybe get a little bit confusing. But yeah, a lot of like very successful business people out there, even like the most successful entrepreneurs, business owners, managers, you would think, oh, they're successful, they don't need coaches. But especially these people have coaches. So, and the reason why some of them are successful, it's also because they have their coaches. So they invested a little bit in them, in the coaching part, so that they can grow and do the things faster and can get to success faster compared to people who don't hire coaches. So yeah, very often we hear that, why would I invest in a coach, especially in the beginning when I have a startup and no money? But especially then it's also a very crucial time where you could save a lot of time and accelerate and become more successful faster when you really have a coach, a good coach.
Absolutely. That's why Janine has set up this whole fantastic convention, so that you guys can experience different style of coaching and expertise, and then think if that is anything that you would like to work more with, or with the people that might give you some insight that you might want to work more on. That's literally why we're here today. So if you have any questions on any of that, there's going to be everyone's contact details either in the WeChat group or in the email. So feel free to reach out. What coaches do is literally help people. So we're always happy to hear from people if we can do anything to help.
And the nice thing is we actually have a few coaches here also in our Excellence Convention who are based in France, like Boris, for example. We have a few coaches here in Belgium, Australia, not only China. So even if you have a specific need for your country, let's just talk and we'll find a solution for you.